raise the energy as the night goes on. My name is Brandon Wint. I am a poet, spoken word artist, and I'm also someone who works with Massy Arts to bring events like this to you. Today I'm doing double duty as like the host of this event and the host of this event. It'll make sense later. Just like, usually I don't like hold the mic this much. Anyway, welcome. For how many of you is this your first Massy Arts experience? Okay, cool. Welcome. Congratulations. You are in the right place. You're always in the right place, but I'm particularly glad that you're here today. What is there to say? Massy Arts Society is connected to Massy Books that you might already know about. Massy Arts Society is an Indigenous-owned, Indigenous-led space. We are stewarded by the wonderful Patricia Massy. And so this is both a literary event space, as you will now know, and also a gallery. Feel free to peruse the gallery at any like socially acceptable time within the evening. Massy's goal is to bring together the literary production, the community building, the overall beauty and community fortitude of folks that are sometimes called over-excluded artists. So that could be over-excluded for reasons of race, sexual orientation, just like generally we want to bring marginalized artistry into this space, celebrate it, beautify it, fortify it. And so, in that way, I like to think of Massy Arts as sort of both a literary hub and a political hub. And so in that spirit, it is also my responsibility to remind us that this land is the unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh peoples. And Massy Arts takes its role in, being one of many decolonial, anti-colonial actors quite seriously. And so, that also means activating towards Palestinian liberation. And if you want to know more about movements towards that end, you can sign up for our newsletter. But yeah, we're just about justice over here, justice and good words, so bring all your good words, all your justice-aligned energy to this space. In terms of like housekeeping, there's a washroom. It works wonderfully. If for any reason you need support, like opening the door, like it's not automatic, we can help you with that. There is what do we call it? Like a bar, like if you need support in the washroom, but generally, it's a washroom. You'll figure it out. We have a whole bunch of books for sale that you can peruse and buy at any point during the evening. Nevin will sell you those. We also have a small quantity of alcoholic beverages, if that's how you like to consume your poetry, like poetry and beer, if that's your combo, that's cool. Other than that, the only thing maybe to remind you of is we have the pleasure today of being part of a documentary. We have a small film crew here here in conjunction with Tell a Story Hive. And so if you want this to be your 15 minutes of fame, you know what I mean? Like change your shirt now, or like you're all looking beautiful. I'm just saying, if you want to go above and beyond, you can. you can. But in general, treat them kindly, but act like they're not here. Just be natural. Other than that, I don't have like the spiel. Do you wanna give it?
Yeah. I'm naloxone trained and administered. If anyone needs this tonight, or encounters anyone who needs this and I can use this access point, let me know.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Nevin. Is there anything else on my list of things to say? So this event is Kazim Ali and Friends. We're all friends. And so I, as a poet, I work at Massy, but, I'm a poet first and foremost. And so sometimes they invite me to do things that make me feel like a kid in a candy store, or like I'm in like the perfect place for my poetry nerdery to really flourish. And so like I'm super geeked to geek out with all of you. We have 5 absolutely luminary poets, and I will introduce you to the first of them right now. Jen Currin has published 6 books, most recently Hider Seeker Stories, which won a Canadian Independent Book Award and was named a 2018 Globe and Mail Best Book, and recently published poetry collection Trinity Street. Currin lives on the unceded Quaque, Musqueam, and Kwantlen territories in New Westminster and teaches writing at Kwantlen Polytechnic University. Their second collection of short stories, Disembark, will be out from House of Anansi Press in May. Join me in welcoming to the stage.
Thanks so much, Brandon. Sometimes I come to readings just to listen to your intros. Put your poems unto themselves. I've been waiting like over 20 years to read with Kazim because I've known him since about 2000.
We met in Vancouver.
I thought we
in
met
an
in New York.
In an elevator at the
Damn,
convention center.
Is that what AWP in Vancouver? I thought we met in New York before that with Jen.
I don't remember
Okay.
that. I don't remember that. I remember the elevator.
Okay, I remember New York. Whose memory is correct? But just such a delight to have you here. Thank you so much for coming to read with us. And I'm so excited to read with Bronwen Tate, Cecily and Hari as well. I'm fans of all of their work and them as people. So thanks you all for coming too. I'm just going to read a few poems from Trinity Street. This one is called Friday Mouth. Vocally, from my belly, from my antlers hang jewels, necklaces belonging to my grandmothers, and a very large pine cone my aunt carried around in a cedar box on her walks. Witness, here for the ancestors who call me on creaking phones in the deep black vitality of night. I'm sleeping. Conversations twinkle the next day, little dusts. I must make notes. Reminded again to love the student who wrote problematic, what she's trying to work out, difficult. Lungs buck a little as I bike up the rainy hill and think of the great American poet in Paris compose a letter. How are you? And I heard another one of your husbands died. But now's the time to get up and take some tincture. Someone I love is leaving for work, and I watch her slip an earring into a low lipstick, her Friday mouth. Later, I will meet her. Keep my soul in a backpack so it may be weighed when I arrive. I forgot to also say that Kazim blurbed this book. And so really, really sweet of him, and his blurb was like a poem. So thank you also for that. Microdose. I am writing an article about mushrooms for a magazine that pays in craft beer. They poached ginseng from the woods, left the patch in shambles. I haven't been studying my French, and I've forgotten the word for reverence. The cities dwindle, but the mysteries have never gone away. On a hill high as cats who licked the acid bowl. Sacred ferns, smallest Gary oak, fallen cedar drilled open by two red-headed woodpeckers. I rocked in a cold breath on the bathroom floor. The holy man kept a tiger as a pet, healed the villagers with hands-on ginger and turmeric. LSD 5 times and Molly just twice. I decided to major in accounting. A microdose with coffee to stave off the predations of depressive thoughts. My mother kept the peyote in her top drawer and in July flushed it down the toilet. My father took LSD and lost his virginity on a hayride. Some of my friends have a high education. Some of my friends never take a sip. She wants to walk to the river later. I want to walk on the river later. I never tell anyone where I worship, why, or how. Twins. After creating the sun with some fire and an axe, She used an old notebook to contact her dead brother. He hadn't yet called from any of his other worlds. He stumbled out of this one while his body stayed by the river. Why the book of someone could never be burnt, she couldn't quite figure. A dip in the river, flowers shutting its eyes to sleep. A long song, soft vocals still playing on headphones left on a rock. This book is politically important, she said, although it seems she might try to drown it or axe it to pieces. A brother goes into a cave and never comes out. Even though she cannot draw this, cannot enter the chaos or attend a class on making amends, she extends. And he is there, just on the other side of the veil, waiting in a world they once woke in, side by side, bare feet, unconcerned sandals, a dip of water from the well, a small sip before they ran off to play. The woods. She told me she was going into the woods to find the divine feminine. I will be holding onto her skirts even if I am dragged through the mud, she wrote on a postcard bearing a picture of a northern flicker. She instructed young people on how to be self-sufficient. That's a black bear, back away. That cave of throbbing light is what we came for, but don't go inside just yet. The coral lipstick she wore on our second date stained my white shirt. We met, like so many, online. I was surprised by her agile fingers. After a while, we lost touch. I stewed in loneliness. She fell in love with her straight roommate, writing her voluminous notes swaddled in pink envelopes, which she slid under her door. That was the year I finished college, just as a great experimental composer died. And although I wasn't invited, I wondered what cake, what prayer at their wedding. And then this is the last one I'll read tonight, and I dedicate it to all of you. Thanks so much for coming tonight. It's called, I Assume the Poets Will Continue at Their Trade. Two friends leave dead marriages. It's January already. The president is dead. Believe the leaves. They're coming back. You beg a beginning. You say I never play my guitar. You say I don't own a guitar. You say I don't own you. Notebook testament. She used to stretch her fingers before playing. There could be a lot to read and worry about if that's how you want to start your morning. My fingers are very out of practice. My president has not yet been elected. She is under the sludge in the Stalo River, waiting to wake us up. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I think we met here, Jen. I think we can like confirm that it wasn't an elevator. Okay, wonderful. It was great to hear you read. Like, we've been in conversation in so many ways, and it's like great to hear your poetry and your voice. So thank you for your skill and your humility, because I felt both. And maybe I should have mentioned we have other tenants in the building. Mostly like, so from upstairs you're more likely to hear like blaring dance music. Sometimes they'd be choreographing routines, or like there's a tattoo studio up there. In this direction we have a pottery studio, so sometimes you'll hear people like slapping clay or whatever, whatever potters do, you know what I mean? And then, yeah, oh yeah, and then downstairs is like an exercise place, so if you hear like grunting, don't be alarmed. Don't be alarmed. It's just people getting swole. It's really all good. It's really all good. You're in safe hands. The next wonderful reader this evening will be Bronwen Tate. Bronwen Tate is the author of the poetry collection The Silk the Moths Ignore. She's undergraduate chair in the School of Creative Writing at UBC, where she offers courses in poetry, creative nonfiction, literary translation, and the teaching of creative writing. In collaboration with UBC colleague John Vigna, Bronwen is co-writing a creative writing pedagogy book under contract with Bloomsburg Academic. Join me in welcoming the wonderful Bronwen Tate.
Thank you so much. And I'll just say for this teaching book, we interviewed like 40 people, including Cecily, and it's going to be really cool, but it'll be a while. We're still working on it. So I'll read. Yeah, all right. Make it for short people. Is that good? Is that good? All right. I'll read a poem or two from the book, and then maybe a little fairy tale printed on paper for you. We require the risk of impossibility. Everything I don't understand this evening is blooming. The paths, perfect and separate halves of a pear, lead past riparian glades near a tangle of duckweed and periwinkle. As if I could catch a brill from the pump trough or invent some bearded lettuce. Place a salamander by the sweetly balsamic impatience. First spring showers still cousin to the snow. Still some sprout, let weeds grow. Unless I sit under the shade of a poplar, pluck with my fingers chestnut, puffball, bold whirligig of maple, I doubt. Vetch blossom pollen, sweet sap of the apiary, I forget a scourge can be a literal slap. To acknowledge damage, stirring damsons, steam and garnet, a friend's sudden rupture, how suture that longing to cradle. 1 year, fearless, she stumbles, top lip tooth cut, her suck mingles milk and blood. All right, got red tail, yellow tail, brown tail. What do you want to hear?
Yes.
Yellow? All right, we'll do yellow. All right. Yellowtail has another word with it, and that is scarcity. The whole world was the kingdom, and I could see farther, gentle hills. Spile stabbed sap plinked into tin buckets, barely sweet, it required reduction. So much less than anyone had hoped. When there is not enough, the youngest son walks alone toward the farthest mountain. The virtuous daughter laces her braid with yarn, departs. Rabbits bring her tidbits. A winsome wind arcs from the north, cough scrapes a rough-toothed comb along her raw throat. She talks to herself, and a willow answers. Nothing to walk away in search of, nothing to discover in the notch of an oak tree. Gathering in the warmest room, they count what remains. What would they abandon to keep it? What if you died and became a walking skeleton, her son asked. Scary rays of unseasonable sun, they sit and cry, the scrying icy, the cat tired, or the kingdom was the whole world. Cysts crusting limp, they pick at the spot where it hurts. Across fields flits scarce clouded copper, scarce yellow. For horses, mangelwurzel, root of scarcity. How carry the strays, clay under fingernails, city of scars on their bare arms, don't ask. Laughing, they said he bent to pet the cat that was a skunk. Surely she had plenty of something. Goldenrod, she saw it everywhere, snipped with fingers, then scissors, pictured it piled in boiling vats, bleeding yellow. Golden sprays already turning when alum at last arrived. All along paths and roadsides, it withered quickly. Still turning a wild thing no one had planted into a color held against the snow, she called each hue a name she could taste: butter, lemon, mustard. She gnawed thumbs callous and found it tender for days. Stop making a hole in the ice. Someone could trip and fall. I thought you said falling was part of learning. She knew the moment just after, wanting to leap the broken cup back up onto the counter, walk past it carefully. She must break 3 glasses, lay waste in small doses, swallow what she couldn't carry. Born to want both salt and safety, patient only when she sliced yellow onions, first in half, then along the length in half moons, then crosswise, so the cuts and grain yielded a small dice, plenty. She dreamed her hair smelled like roses. You can hear the breathing. She breathed. Okay. Thanks.
More applause for Bronwen, please. This was a good idea, wasn't it? Yeah? You feel good? Yeah, me too. Me too. Our next luminary poet is Hari Alluri. Hari Alluri, Hari Alluri is a migrant poet of Filipinx and South Asian descent, living and writing on unceded Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Quequay, and Coquitlam lands. Author of The Flayed City, co-founding editor at Lockhorns Press, and co-editor of We Are Not Alone, a community art building works anthology. His work appears recently in AALR, the Capilano Review, Filling Station, among other publications. He has received fellowships and grants from the BC Arts Council, yay! Canada Council for the Arts, Las Dos Brujas, Martha's Vineyard Institute of Creative Writing, and others. Join me in welcoming a poet's poet, Hari Alluri.
I feel like triple lucky. We've got, poets who've influenced me and taught me for many years. I look around the room, I see the future of poetry as well. So I also forget the years as an MC when I used to know how to do this. So with Kazim's permission, and thank you, Kazim, for being here, I'm gonna read a couple of Kazim's poems and read a couple of my poems in between Kazim's poems. They're still teaching me, and I'm working on revisions for something, and I think I just figured some shit out while reading Kazim's work. So believe me, at least for today. This is Marble Hill. Paradise lies beneath the feet of your mother. A verse I've heard recited so frequently I do not know if it is scripture or hadith. Hadith, meaning traditions of the Prophet, are always accompanied by a careful oral lineage of who said what to whom, and who said who, and who heard who say they heard what. Usually back to one of the Prophet's wives who heard the Prophet say it. The veil also between what you want to see and cannot see, what you wish to have heard but did not hear. In Bhutto, dancers are rendered in white smoke, ghosts traversing the stage's womb, moving so slowly you do not even know they are here. This writing is fucking good, right? If paradise lies beneath the feet of my mother, then how will I find my way inside unless she admits me? Now I look at each face, each body, as it moves around the subway platform, down the stairs and around the platform onto trains, off of them. After my aunt Chand Mumani's death, I thought of them each as flames. In each, the body is combusting, burning up the fuel of the soul. Michelle, after giving birth, walked around the city, imagining everyone glistening, bordered in amniotic grit. But is it really like Fanny writes, the body only a car, the soul is driving? Or something of us sunk into the matter of the body, part of us actually flesh, inseparable from it, and upon death, truly dispersed, smoke? My mother never learned to ride a bike. She whose son would one day fail to teach her. She who once kicked my training wheels further off the ground at my request. Then came running to scoop me off the dirt I landed in with her daughter in her arms. I wanted to cry loud enough for my father to come running. Of course he couldn't. We were trying to get me to learn to ride before he showed up back. My mother, my tiny sister, and I making our way back, kicking up red dust, looking nothing like any kind of march. This smoke I light is for those whose training wheels she tried to put back on, but whose refusal, with her help, ultimately got a bike's balance under me. I am writing to you 3 smokes deep into being past my bedtime, which might past my bedtime, so balance is still, sorry mama, a thing I'm trying to learn. That might sound silly because I'm grown, but I've reached the part of my life where my morning, let's call them rituals, have to happen an exact way for this body to work at all. Anyway, the training wheels refused to reach the ground again, refused to do their job. Unlike the bike chain grease I can still see on my mother's fingers. And this one is just an excerpt from a longer poem, Hesperine for David Berger. And I'll follow it directly with an excerpt from the voice of Sheila Chandra and read a couple little bits. The broomstick shatters the glass window and the image litters down. Kaf haya ain suad. A voice then breaks as evening covers us in a downpour. What else? What else? Yasin. And then not in the present moment, nor in some deathless wished-for past, but somewhere very ordinary, a normal day, a spring day, perhaps a little chilly. There's Muhammad in the hills above Ramallah, lacing up even though there is no open ground to run, no coach to train him, no spikes for his shoes, no starting blocks. Meanwhile, our candle is surrounded by wings on a moth. Spray of an orange peel, the dust where a sleeve cuff gives way to wrists. But loss hangs between our teeth like a rag doll to a dog. And we shake our heads against the grip that pries it from us. Every visit, Auntie would tell how she'd re-bambooed the chairs since we'd been back. And in those moments I was afraid. She was a mountain wearing rocks, how ritual wears fire pit. She was a midnight rooster shouting down dogs. The dogs were what scared me. The regiment in their barking, it clung. This war recast her city's lines, the threads she bound her broom with. What am I, with the weight of a battlefield comb? What am I, blood on the meadow calls for rain? A man dies and again begins. Mosquitoes climb his forehead and a line of ants pivots, sweeps him. She veers at her sleep as if wielding a broom, a woman beside her tea and war. On her hands a frond of aroma. She'll drag its fleeing if she wakes toward the singing in her glass. Perhaps what I am is a dance, wandering in search of bodies.
Oh, what a life it is. It's like it's like a convention of superheroes, right? But nobody wants to show off too much. Everyone's like, yeah, I got a little superpower, but I'm only gonna do it for like 5 minutes. Hari, I wanted more. Thank you for, the fluid brilliance of everything that you do, and the way that you always acknowledge the continuum that poetry is, the way that you acknowledge your teachers is humbling to me, so thank you for that. Our next poetic luminary, our next poetic superhero. Yeah, let me change up my adjectives, I'm a writer too, shit. Our next poetic superhero is none other than Cecily Nicholson. Yeah, Cecily Nicholson is the author of 4 books of poetry and a past recipient of the Dorothy Livesay Poetry Prize and the Governor General's Literary Award for Poetry. She's an assistant professor in the School of Creative Writing at UBC and a 2024-25 Holloway Lecturer in Poetry and Poetics at UC Berkeley. Join me in welcoming Cecily Nicholson to the stage.
There's a lot of people up here.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, this is the one. Cool.
Thanks.
I will make way.
I'm honored to share space with you all, and we are delighted you're here. Congratulations, collected works. That's got to be an incredible milestone.
Probably means your dad.
It's just incredible. It's selected. Sorry. Yeah, I'm learning.
Eviscerated.
Okay, it was going to be a compliment. I think it's going to be. But yeah, just delighted that you're here, and your resonant work is in the room. I'm going to share 2 long poems. The first is from my first book, a very old poem, but I've been spending a lot of time in the downtown East Side community where I've worked and volunteered for 20-25 years, and I'm feeling it right now. So I'll start there, and then I'll read a second poem. I'll explain it when I get there. Common techne, plural, practical, flexible, nurtured on sour ground work songs, with unitary hymnals of ascendant grinds, swash, salvage lumber, wax, and binder twine, we drift, taking in water as an awkward discipline, as strays gathering tumult under bridges, small dot passages to mouth. Service, rids, city, misery. And we swallow stone grit, and we get round with risk, and we rest as bodies of waved matter, because we are home. By powder and lead, we are home. In this temperate bayou smelling of diesel that harbors less and less, security worries less because income's been offered up grist to the mill. And this was a distillery, smoking all the time like the boys on the rusted red and blue tankers, anchored. Come no closer. His coal face was a victim of careless talk, giving donations, attacking on all fronts. Antiquity brought victory bonds, Gringolandia, and income. Income performs corners, prefers live-in and work-in Espalier apartments. The state of Styler tours, uniform purges, ruthless administrations and salt heritage working still. These are borderlines in motion, tin casings, greasy chambers, eyes that slide by, eager to buy articles for use and contemplation. Every want wins its association, and economy is commonly crafting things of value amongst the ruinated sumpweed. And the blood bugs rival the roaches, and the pigeons rustle, meeting after meeting, bit percentages stitch in light industry, ground level retail, commercial activities, blank, dominant filters. Sally Ann and so on sprawl across sunny peaks. Playgrounds will melt. Where medicine grows, children are strong. May the day break. Kind keeping 6, witness, vagrant years of enclosure. Intensification of throughput indifference, and who will work for bus tickets, travel-sized toiletries, socks, and cigarettes. It's an enforceable order. Apothecarial front, sick, back, prospects, orange cap, pop, blot land, remakes survival until indigent burials, and the wardly heart-wretched surge. Memorials are bruises, yellowed sage and blackberries of age behind the brewery. Old railway tracks end in bramble, and the broken faces living under a bridge kiss, hand drippings, salt from an old man's rags. The waning gibbous lamp, low 100 blocks, sighing alder flats, branches woven above, mossy decay, methadrone, bushwhack knotted leaves, the pale undersides expose a certain rain. Interrogatory hospitality is just a box with really good handles. May it break again. Sleeker things are imbricated, even these days are complicit. Wire runway, razor-laced walls, holes in reservoirs. Constant working back, ashtrays and footrests, that last cigarette made me feel sick, but I finished it anyway. A nervous part of the system, our troops. Frequent visits to the mouth, upgrading. Irreducibly complex is but a mousetrap. There is no underground for these sore stories high. But we're made for the night, and it could be better, but it could be worse. And harried passerbys go on quiet Appalachia streets, searching for small-scale tobacco. Ship chandlers and pubs, lager supplies, mutters to mothers written on walls. And there are loves sharp in the distance, and their trembling fingers are digging for atoms. And these are blurs of resistance that are plump and blackened. Woo. Thank you. I used to rhyme a lot more. It's really, really glaring to me now. Anyway, and the second piece, just briefly, was a commission from Kari McClellan during this recent pandemic, and it was, looking back on it now, I realized it was a really incredible, important moment to get out of my hermitage to do this performance, and it was in collaboration with our friend Hari here. I'll just jump right in. Outbreaking at a federal and provincial prison, kept cages, a mink farm, a poultry processing plant. Among farmers bunked up quarter next to quarter, decade after decade, for luxury, for groceries, this social contract been killing with. Take on slowness. We, running the town, breathe in this. Flood is status for all. This local history month capital, how to divert and bank. How do you spend our money? Respect our opinion on finance, a slave's word. Values the rust of art history, mid-century modern chairs and their bosses, present company excluded. Feel my individual feels, restricted pulse, microtension, tributaries of hairline fractures, cortisonally active. Will, intent, bothers to reach out. Yes, I can mobilize. Slow, after Opokwasali, Kant, Hartman, and Lee. Remedy after Monet, Antwi, Lubrin, Okopitek. Ocean after Eisen Martin, Desil. Presence, Moten, Jordan, Shoutouts, Sharp, Archive after Norbesi. In another version of the story. Sensory postcards wake late nights that whip by, which some days dream, may we side by side the loot and the riot and the protest. In digital speculative fabric, trip the light $10, anti-Asian, anti-black, auntie, this and that and happenstance. The elevator closes and our dogs talk the dwell time of Virix 5. Posture in a smile under my mask, my eyebrow power suits we've been wearing. I go outside into free, fresh air. Lockdown is not a metaphor. Neighborhood is essential and I am out in it. This woman on a bicycle seems relaxed, rounded like me, fit sprung, I mean fly, I'm saying well-paced. She seems happily accompanied and I cry. A host, the bus driver, grocer, building services worker, that thinker that held it down, made sense, made comfort, made breath, made opportunities for us to stand and to sit up. We are incredible, this is powerful, and I cry. As she dance, leap, runs past, masked with a water gun, her hair, a puff of sail, a sweet shrub of midnight hydrangea, the storming clouds, they're behind her. And I cry, and I cry, and I cry, and the water falls down on the inside. Sopping holds ourselves together while other people are about to die. Let failure rack the joints and pry water. What this fold can take still stretches the cage. As a tall hive movement house of garden sill and signal, this candle, night after night, reaches after tomorrow, live and rough against what towers over us, confinements that we adhere to, media libraries for emoting. I need to just scream in my heart, forward and tumble, fantastic, hours living for June Jordan and Bookmeister Fuller, holding hands, laid out under drifting skies, the season, shyness, the limbs, branch, and the rivers remain our best systems. Thank you.
Oh, Cecily Nicholson, everybody. Sometimes it feels like a sacred thing to touch a microphone after someone has spoken into it with that much force and beauty. Yeah, thank you for the music of that poetry, the fierceness of it, the attentiveness of it. I am moved, and yet I must stand here as though I haven't melted. You know? It's a trick I do. Thank you for that. And our final reader for the evening is Kazim Ali. Kazim Ali was born in the United Kingdom and has lived transnationally in the United States, Canada, India, France, and the Middle East. His books encompass multiple genres, including poetry, fiction, nonfiction, and translations. He is currently a professor of literature at the University of California, San Diego. His new collection, Sukun, is a collection of the best poetry across his nearly 20 years in poetry as a career. Join me in welcoming to the stage our final reader for the evening, Kazim Ali.
Hey, how are you guys doing?
Good.
Yeah? So I have to go after that, which is difficult, but I will endeavor to acquit myself. This is a little poem called Ioannis Ritsos. It's titled after the Greek poet of the 20th century, and he is kind of in it. But it's really about Mahmoud Darwish, who is also a great poet of the 20th century, a Palestinian poet, who I learned of his death when I was in southern Spain, which is Arab Spain, and he died in the United States, which there's maybe a little bit of irony around that because he always refused to come to the United States to read, but he did come for an operation which was supposed to be life-saving, but he died after the surgery in the hospital. The surgery was successful, but he was infirm. He was 69, I think, and I guess a lifetime of exile and occupation will also impact your physical health. At any rate, the epigraph of this poem, Ioannis Ritsos, refers to when the Palestinian leadership fled Beirut in the bombing of Beirut in 1982. Thank you, yeah. They went to Athens. The airstrips were bombed, so they escaped by ship, and they landed in Athens. And when Ritsos heard that Darwish was coming, he went down to the harbor to wait for the boat. Ioannis, you held him in the glare of the diamonded sea, unteaching him his practical mantra of liberation, maybe seeing in him a son to take care of you in your own loneliness. A loneliness varnished by your detention in the house made of flower stems that thrust through the rocks in the prison yard, its roof made of unscannable lines of rain. You reveal to him the sound of the rusty hinged door, how it would swing sadly open and reveal no homeland beyond at all. He came from the sea, dragging his anklets of keys. Did you teach him then how the old locks and houses of his hometown were already all broken? Giannis, in the end, he rinsed the last of the coast road's dust from his body after a lifetime of pressing his language into lines of poetry and prayer and prestidigitation, tired of praising mosques in which he could not pray. That same morning that I was forbidden to pray by the guard at the Mezquita of Cordoba, he woke up in Houston, Texas, and went to a mall food court to meet for the first and last time his translator. The words they spoke to one another that morning were the same as the ones I saw in stone fragments on the floor of the archaeological dig at Medina Sahra, the ruined capital of the West, looking east toward the cities that had been left behind. That city had remained buried in a field for 1,000 years. The palace and throne room had been torn apart. The rubble of the mosaics were now being painstakingly reassembled piece by piece, unlike the villages of Palestine, disassembled down to stone. Giannis, what did you say to him that blue afternoon when the steel canoe landed and he arrived in another place that would be home and not home? In Cordoba, meanwhile, the story of his death flashed across the morning news, scrolling across the screen from clay to nothing. But let's let the sea have the last word. The sea he crossed to come to you, or the sea that sparkled off the coast of Chile when he, many years later, in Neruda's house, remembered you, or the sea that rained lightly down as the poet and his translator huddled together over cheap food court coffee to converse in a shopping mall in Texas, though it could have been Athens or Palestine or Neruda's house, at least as good as any mosque in the world, so long as there was coffee and poetry and the sound of rain. Rain in the shape of the river, rain in the shape of a broken lock, rain in the shape of long since written verses, while the translator of lost homelands makes from the sound of butterfly wings rain in the shape of the dark furnace of days. Thank you. Yeah, that translator is Fadi Judah, who lives in Houston, and it's a true story that he met Darwish there the night before Darwish. He died the next afternoon after the operation. So he did meet him once. This is a poem called John, John. John. Who was I when I was writing this name, John? Copper oxidizes to green. Air packs itself tight in the seed. Seed unspools in the ground, writing the biography of dirt. A little down the road, another tower is going up. In the picture, a man holds his briefcase over his head like an umbrella. In the rain, bodies are soft and disappear into sound. On John Street, down the road from the World Trade Center, almost choking on loneliness, that year I lived in the sky. and the waters of the river are nothing so much as the air around us, and ash, and what thought it would outlive us drifts sparkling in the October air. So when you ask, who am I past this storm-tossed vessel, the one you're always bailing out, it is just another way to ignore this constant unraveling, this always reaching for an end, when clearly there's no end in sight. I lived on John Street, strangely enough, when there still was a World Trade Center. I lived on John Street for a brief, weird year. This is a little poem called Drone, and I think it's drone in two ways. I mean, it's the drone that flies overhead, and then it's also the drone in classical Indian music. Do strangers make you human? Science fiction visiting bodies as cold fact? And what unknown numbers govern our genes or our phones? A constant thrum from outer space. Snow makes a sound in sand. You are seen from far above. What myth explains you, unheard and vanished? Bodies dismember to dirt. Hardly alive, hardly a person anymore. Who will I be next? And in that life, will you know me? I would like to read to you a poem called Pulse. When the Pulse nightclub shooting in Orlando, Florida happened, a poet asked a group of us to write responses that were then going to go online. And on a website of some kind, and I refused the assignment. I said I couldn't do it, which was a lie. I wrote the poem, but I just didn't give it. It's too much pressure, you know. So this is called Pulse, and Orlando is also a novel by Virginia Woolf, right? Okay. And I just say one thing about the language about this is an educational moment about a poem itself. I mean, sometimes the world is making sense, so the language is not going to make sense. And the lyric as a form that seeks to contain space and time for a queer person of color is going to break into pieces. That's what Cecily's Wayside's saying, that book. It breaks the language. It cannot hold itself, so it breaks. That's what Norbesi did and Zong too, right? So I was inspired by that movement in the lyric in this poem, Pulse. To the sharp report in the dark, the season comes home. Long tongue sound between hand and arm, between mouth and flesh. Hold this moment, river, still what if it was my life? To return after years to the same province of danger, an old town you know, like the handle, the bump stock, the trigger. I want to return to the boat that bore me from the far shore decades ago. What I lived in those languages I forgot, the places I left I want to return to. Were we seen? Were we spoken? Were all the wolves baying met at the edge of the bright darkness of rain? Time cannot fulfill its promise to splinter, return, or slow. Vow this wheel, we even wean, we in the world would wove a low vow, fold, worn low at the hip, to be a solid soldier who soiled his soul for the chance to be the first to aim, first to fire, to fly. In the crosshairs, I am heir to no oar to hold. I am on both sides of the gun, told as sound or cost, one that never ends and the other never returns. Any embrace is the first error in meaning's slope, wrought by thought that one could reach another, touch his shape, known in two genders, like Orlando, whose tongue newly woke. To pronounce any word for God or man means to enter violence's fold. No oath sworn to save, no salvation, no salve, no valor, no ovation, no nation. Thank you so much. And I think I will close with this little last poem. I moved to California in 2019. So this is the first poem I wrote when I arrived there, into the contested and crossed by national border lands of the Kumeyaay people. They are on the United States side of the border and on the Mexican side of the border. And so among the political campaigns they're undertaking is to prevent the building of the border wall. And that has been ongoing for however many years it has been. So anyways, when I arrived as a Muslim brown settler, I discovered a couple of interesting things. Junipero Serra is the name of the Spanish inquisitor who was sent by Spain to Christianize the indigenous people of the Americas. He started in the place that is now called San Diego, which is where I live. And what I learned about the Serras of Mallorca, which is where Junipero Serra was from, is that they were crypto-Muslims. So that's kind of weird, but what better place to hide in than the priesthood? Queer people did it, probably Muslims did it too. So I was inspired by that. The other thing I learned, of course, is the name California is from an Arab word, Khalifa, and it was a Spanish novelist who was writing in the 1500, whenever it was writing what was then probably considered to be a science fiction novel. It was about an island governed by warrior women, and he called the Queen Khalifa was her name, the mythic queen in his novel, and he took the name from the Arabic, which is what Frank Herbert did in Dune too, right? You pick that part up. Everybody's talking about how brilliant that story is, and I'm like, that racist movie. And then the last thing I learned is that the most of the landscape of what we think of as coastal California is all invasive landscape brought from the Mediterranean. Basically, they were trying to recreate the Mediterranean. So California has two botanies. The coastal botany is Mediterranean, and once you go in a little bit into the mountains, it's the indigenous landscape. So those are the things that informed the poem Junipero Serra Arrives. Now a year like bone on a coast named for the Khalifas. We bring date seeds as tribute to Muslim ghosts, not the ones we harvested, but the ones that haunt our own breath. We bring grass that will spread like Christ. If the spirit will not bend, the body can be made to break. We stitch new texts into the air and ground. What a chance to sky, what garden left your tongue shall tie. Don't say mountain, haunted by bone. Don't say body, don't say home. I too chose to live past the arrival of blades into the bodies of my forebears, directing them like rivers or stone, given such vague directions by God or man. Dear memory of myself, wanting to climb, wanting to know, to be taught what is there. Each time I am reinvented as another human, too many times to see the way gold and green are not the lights meant to grow here in an Arabia far from home, in that Spain lost to Inquisition was swept away a golden Jewish and Muslim age in wind and sun, all its sea words blue and mispronounced, from books that did not belong, were miswritten. The mosque roofs grow moss. Rain shines down through the late May storm clouds. What lonely span of ocean I crossed, having now renounced my family of questionable faith on that middle island, to come to the valley of the Kumeyaay, on a shore we will oddly call Khalifa, to obey the dismembered God who in pastures of invasive plants summons me once more to storm heaven.